Good evening. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website, our podcast, and our YouTube channel. We record in audio only. Feel free to use the podcast on our website along with your big book as a resource if you missed the study portion of the meeting. The study portion is also listed on the website so that you can follow along. Tonight's recap will start on page 19, None of Us Makes, and will end on page 22, where it says Hospitals and Sanitariums. Our study tonight will start on page 22, This is by no means, and will end on page 25, Want to stop but cannot. Do we have any announcements? I have one for our group officers or our group trusted servants. We will be having a meeting next Sunday to set the agenda for our group conscience, which will be the following Sunday on the 9th. And information about that and our other meetings will be in the chat at some point during the meeting. So come on in, Lisa.
Thank you, Trish. Good evening, everyone. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and my name is Lisa. Welcome to the Lppbbsg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. To prepare for our Big Book study, let's get focused by having a 3-minute moment of meditation, followed by our family's fog-light prayer.
And I'm a recovered alcoholic. My name is Trish. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to start the meditation in a minute, so please take a moment to get situated.
Please be aware of background noises when you are unmuted and sharing, as not to distract others or yourself. We suggest we all observe proper Zoom etiquette. If you wouldn't do it in a live meeting, please don't do it here. A friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. Please keep yourself muted during someone else's chair. We will call on you in the order hands are raised.
From the forward to the first edition of Alcoholics Anonymous. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are many thousands of men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. To show alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book and of this group.
For the meditation, some suggestions are focus on your breath and posture, breathe in God, and breathe out self.
Take this time to reconnect with God. Let the craziness of the day drift away and ask God to help you focus on the study. And let's bring in those monks. And let's have our fog light prayer. God, let your love shine through us like a fog light,
so that those that are lost, sick, and dying can find your love through us. Amen.
Let's have our secretary's report. Come on in, Jim.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jim F., and I'm your recovered alcoholic secretary. I've asked Rick to read the recovered statement. We read this notice to explain why many people in this group identify as recovered rather than recovering, and what it exactly means to be a recovered alcoholic. Take it away, Rick.
Hello everyone, Rick Alcoholic, recovered. We are not cured of alcoholism, recovered but not cured. That presents a conflict to some alcoholics. If we were cured, we could be able to drink responsibly. No, we are not cured. The allergic reaction to alcohol will remain with us for a lifetime, but we have been restored to sanity. That was the problem. The main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. It says so on page 23. We are now sane where alcohol is concerned. Consequently, we have recovered. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. We meet every Tuesday starting at 5:30 Central Time with the Gerbil Fellowship Cage, where we chatter for an hour before the start of the meeting. Feel free to bring side dishes to share with the buzzards. Our big book study starts promptly at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, and we ask that you be courteous and ready to begin at the sound of the foghorn. We take our big book study seriously because of this chat will be disabled during the study. In the 1940s, when the only elements to sobriety were God, a big book, and one recovered alcoholic working with an untreated alcoholic, the success rate was as follows. From the forward to the second edition of Alcoholics Anonymous, page XX. Of alcoholics who came to AA and really tried, 50% got sober at once and remained that way. 25% sobered up after some relapse. And the remainder, those who stayed on with AA, showed improvement. Can we have a show of hands of people joining us for the first time? Welcome.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. And the recovered alcoholics. These are your potential sponsors. There we go. Right on. Is anyone celebrating a milestone this week? If you should require a big book of your own, we have large print editions available that can be sent to you by buzzard mail. Delivery time questionable. Please remember to practice our 7th tradition by donating to the group address, Venmo, or PayPal posted in the chat. Our suggestion is to purchase a big book and take an untreated alcoholic through the program of recovery. Please visit our website posted in the chat. Thank you. See you next week.
Thank you, Jim. From chapter 2, there is a solution. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. We have a way out of which we can absolutely agree and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism.
This is an open meeting, and as such, all who have an interest in alcoholism and our program of recovery are welcome. Because this is an open meeting, you need not identify yourself nor your reason for being here if you do not wish to do so. Your anonymity will be protected. We ask that you protect ours.
While this is an open meeting, membership in this group is limited to those who wish to recover from alcoholism and have a desire to stop drinking for good and all. Each member of Alcoholics Anonymous is a potential sponsor of a new member and should clearly recognize the obligations and duties of such a responsibility.
Before we begin our study of the Big Book, last week we reviewed Tradition 3. Tonight, let's take a quick look at Tradition 4. Please refer to page 562 of our book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And come on in, Jamie.
Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful recovered alcoholic, and welcome to all of those of you who are new joining us tonight. And hey, those of you who have been coming for a while, keep coming back. I'll be your traditionalist for tonight, and we are on Tradition 4, so the short form of Tradition 4. Each group should be autonomous, except in other matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. And the long form, with respect to its own affairs, each AA group should be responsible to no other authority than its own conscience. But when its plans concern the welfare of neighboring groups also, those groups ought to be consulted, and no group, regional committee, or individual should ever take any action that might greatly affect AA as a whole without conferring with the trustees of the General Service Board. On such issues, our common welfare is paramount. So I absolutely love this tradition, and the importance of it is that we make our own decisions within our group. You know, the Alcoholics Anonymous General Service Board has some guidelines on there's a pamphlet called The Group, and it shows us how groups should ideally operate and so on. But it's important that we have our own voice and our own autonomy. The great thing about that is that so here we are known as the Lewisburg Primary Purpose Big Book Study Group. But as you might see, there might be a few pickle names attached to a few people, and we're also known in our district, in our area, as known as the Pickle People, and that's quite fine. It's actually quite hilarious. But we don't. Everything that we try and do in this group is something that will serve the newcomer, serve our district, serve Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole and our area. And we try not to the best of our ability, to do things that are in conflict with other groups. And I'll give you an example of that. When this group originally started, I got a message from another guy who was in town, and he says, well, this big book study you're starting, it's in conflict with our big book study. And it's like, no, not really. Number one, it's 5 miles away. And number two, there are people who are coming to it that don't go to your big book study. People coming from 3 different areas to come to this big book study. So it wasn't in conflict. They only felt it was, or felt it was in competition. Now, had this meeting started 2.5 blocks away at the same time, then it might have been in conflict with it. So we have a way of running things around this group. You know, we're registered with GSO. We take a 7th tradition. We contribute to all of the entities of Alcoholics Anonymous to try and help support them and help Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole. There's some other things that we do in this group as well. And we can do that because of our own autonomy. If you're brand new and you don't have a big book, send your information to Trish and we will send you a big book free of charge. If you like what we have to offer, even though you may not be a home group member, if here on the 9th we're going to have a business meeting. If you want to come see how we operate and get a better understanding of how we operate, you are welcome to come to that as well. And we do some other things in this group as well. We contribute big books to go into the prison system and many other things that we do. We also do the same with grapevines and so on. The importance of this tradition, too, is it brings tradition one into it about our common welfare coming first. You know, each and every one of you in this room is very important, and especially if you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous, you are very important because you are the lifeblood that courses through the veins of old-timers, and we need you. We need you to carry on. The other thing that this tradition does is it brings into a tradition too of the idea that our group conscience, a loving God as he expresses himself through our group conscience, is the voice of what we do. And when we have business meetings, maybe everybody doesn't agree, but we always have a unanimous vote or at least a simple majority for the decisions that we make to carry on. And then after that, if it doesn't work out, then we try something different. But we have been blessed for everything to work out. So grateful you are all here. I hope you enjoyed the journey and enjoy what we have to offer, and I certainly hope you will come back. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. It's time for our weekly segment of That Ain't in the Book. We hear a lot of stuff said in meetings that can't be reconciled with the program as described in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the things we often hear is there's no musts in AA. Kenny, can you come in and tell us what it says on page 164 in the first paragraph?
Yes, I will. God will determine that, so you must be sure. So you must remember that your reliance is always upon Him.
Thank you, Kenny. As we study, please make use of the pens, highlighters, and rulers so that you can share this experience with another alcoholic.
In order for us to stay focused as we study the Big Book, we use the Big Book study guide prepared by Joe and Charlie and Krusty Cliff, the Dallas Primary Purpose Group.
Tonight we're going to start our recap on page 19, which will be read tonight by Sheila. And that will be followed by our study portion, which will be read by Terry.
After the page is read, we will...
Go ahead, Lisa.
After the page is read, we will ask questions from the imaginary podium, starting back on our study portion that was read by Terry. The answers will be one sentence unless otherwise specified, and multi-part questions are simply a one-sentence answer split up by commas, semicolons, hyphens, and other fun bits of punctuation.
Basically, in English, what that means is we're going to read the material once through, then dissect the information a second time through the question and answer format. Notice how the language in the questions gives us a new light in which to consider the study material.
This is important because hearing the question and rereading the content offers a definite way of comprehending the material covered. After we've completed the study, we open up for comment, questions, and observations based on what was just read. If you have spiritual experience with this information, you are free to share. Please keep your share on topic and under 5 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, you may hear a timer beep to let you know that your time is finished.
However, Big Book study is not therapy. Should you begin sharing on topics which are more appropriately discussed in a different setting, for example with a sponsor, please do not be offended when we cut that conversation short and send the buzzards nipping at your heels. For that purpose, we have fellowship meetings before and after our study time.
You can never go wrong by commenting on the pages studied, which brings us to the words of one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. Sobriety, freedom from alcohol through the teaching and practice of the 12 steps, is the sole purpose of any Alcoholics Anonymous group.
But before we get started, how do we get here? We didn't just randomly open the book to page 19 and say, let's read this tonight. As Jamie said, this meeting started in Tennessee as an in-person meeting in 2020. And COVID hit, and then we became a 100% virtual meeting. And we will always be a virtual meeting because we are not all in Tennessee, and we're not all going to go there every week to get to the meeting. But we start our reading, we start our rotation and through the book, each time on the title page where we find our first promise, how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And then we read every page through all the Roman numbers and all the 1 through 164 through this question and answer format. We also read through the spiritual experience 3 times as a part of the study when the asterisk in the study tells us to read that portion. And then we also read Dr. Bob's Nightmare. We spend 4 weeks on the traditions, 3 traditions each week. And then we end our 96th week with a standalone week on the spiritual experience, Appendix 2. And then when we're done with that, we circle all the way back to the beginning and we start all over. We are in our 4th season going through the book, our 4th time. We're 5 years as a meeting. And, that's a lot of reading because we're 96 weeks over and over. But every time we go through the book, and each time we go through the book, I find things that I haven't seen before. Go ahead, Lisa.
Thanks, Trish. Before we start the recap, we will need 5 or 6 virtual hands raised if you would like to be one of our answer readers. Please be aware that the first hour and a half of this meeting will be recorded so that we can put it onto our website and our YouTube channel.
And Sheila, come on in and read our recap for us, please.
Okay, Sheila, alcoholic, and I'm gung-ho tonight. Okay, page 19. None of us makes a sole vocation of this work, nor do we think its effectiveness would be increased if we did. We feel that elimination of our drinking is but a beginning. A much more important demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupation, and affairs. All of us spend much of our spare time in the sort of effort which we are going to describe. A few are fortunate enough to be so situated that they can give nearly all their time to the work. If we keep on the way we are going, there is little doubt that much good will result, but the surface of the problem would hardly be scratched. Those of us who live in large cities are overcome by the reflection that close by hundreds are dropping into oblivion every day. Many could recover if they had the opportunity we have enjoyed. How then shall we present that which has been so freely given us? We have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. We shall bring to the task our combined experience and knowledge. This should suggest a useful program for anyone concerned with a drinking problem. Of necessity, there will have to be discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. We are aware that these matters are, from their very nature, controversial. Nothing would please us so much as to write a book which would contain no basis for contention or argument. We shall do our utmost to achieve that ideal. Most of us sense that real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints, and a respect for their opinions and attitudes, which makes us more useful to others. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. You may already have asked yourself why it is that all of us became so very ill from drinking. Doubtless you are curious to discover how and why, in the face of expert opinion to the contrary, we have recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body. If you are an alcoholic who wants to get over it, you may already be asking, what do I have to do? It is the purpose of this book to answer such questions specifically. We shall tell you what we have done. Before going into a detailed discussion, it may be well to summarize some points as we see them. How many times people have said to us, I can take it or leave it alone. Why can't he? Why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? That fellow can't handle his liquor. Why don't you try beer and wine? Lay off the hard stuff. His willpower must be weak. He could stop if he wanted to. She's such a sweet girl. I think he'd stop for her sake. The doctor told him that if he ever drank again, it would kill him. But there he is, all lit up again. Now, these are commonplace observations on drinkers, which we hear all the time. Back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. We see that these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from ours. Moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely if they have a good reason for it. They can take it or leave it alone. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have the habit badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally. It may cause him to die a few years before his time. If a sufficiently strong reason, ill health, falling in love, change of environment, or the warning of a doctor becomes operative, this man may also stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome, and may even need medical attention. But what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may or may not become a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage of his drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. Here is the fellow who's been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. He does absurd, incredible, tragic things while drinking. He's real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. He's seldom mildly intoxicated. He is always more or less insanely drunk. His disposition while drinking resembles his normal nature, but little. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world, yet let him drink for a day and he frequently becomes disgustingly and even dangerously antisocial. His positive genius for getting tight at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept. He is often perfectly sensible and well-balanced, considering everything except liquor, but in that respect he is incredibly dishonest and selfish. He often possesses special abilities, skills, and aptitudes, and has a promising career ahead of him. He uses his gifts to build up a bright outlook for his family and himself, and then pulls the structure down on his head with a senseless series of sprees. He is the fellow who goes to bed so intoxicated he ought to sleep the clock around. Yet early morning he searches madly for the bottle he misplaced the night before. If he can't afford it, he may have liquor concealed all over his house and be certain no one gets his entire supply away from him to throw down the waste pipe. As matters grow worse, he begins to use a combination of high-power sedative and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can go to work. Then comes the day when he simply cannot make it and gets drunk all over again. Perhaps he goes to a doctor who gives him morphine or some sedative with which to taper off. Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanatoriums. Thank you for letting me do service.
Thank you, Sheila. And Terry, come on in with our study portion for tonight.
I'm Terry, recovered alcoholic. This is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic, as our behavior patterns vary. But this description should identify him roughly. Why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle, with all its attendant suffering and humiliation, why is it he takes that one drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower and all he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters? Perhaps there never will be a full answer to those questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We are not sure why, once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. He cannot answer the riddle. We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from the drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men. We are equally positive that once he takes any alcoholic whatever in his system, something happens both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic, I want to underline that, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather in his body. If you ask him why he started on the last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic drinking bout creates. They sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of the alcoholic, he'll laugh it off, become irritated, and refuse to talk. Once in a while, he may tell the truth. And the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took the first drink than you have. Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. There is an obsession that somehow, someday they will beat the game, but they often suspect they are down for the count. How true this, few realize. In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal, but everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will arouse himself from the lethargy and assert his power of will. The tragic truth is that if a man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not. Oh, it's the page. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable at certain times to bring into our own consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. There is a complete failure of this kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, "It won't burn me this time, so here's how." Or perhaps he doesn't think at all. How often have some of us begun to drink in this nonchalant way, and after the third or fourth pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, "For God's sakes, how did I ever get started again?" Only to have that thought supplanted by, "Well, I'll stop with a sixth drink," or "What's the use anyhow?" When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up may die or go permanently insane. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot.
Thank you, Terry, and thank you, Sheila. And now we're going to go back to where Terry started reading and read our questions. And we have 5 answer readers, and that's a good number. And then Lisa will be coming in here and there with 6 or 8 comments. Our batting order tonight will be Kenny, Linda, Rick, Jim, and William. So for those of you answering questions, please speak clearly and into your microphones, and please go ahead and unmute yourself so that you are ready. And for those following along with your book, the answers will just be one sentence at a time, the portion that Terry just read. So heading back to the page where she started on page 22. Starting with you, Kenny. And your first question, is the foregoing a complete picture of the real alcoholic?
Wow.
This is by no means.
This is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic. Our behavior patterns vary.
Thank you. And Linda, go ahead and unmute, please. And your question is, does it come close?
But this description should identify him roughly.
Thank you. And Rick, if hundreds of drunken experiences have ended in a debacle, what are the questions? And please read the entire paragraph.
Why does he behave like this? If hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle with all its attendant suffering and humiliation, why is it he takes that one drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters?
Thank you so much. And Jim, do we have some understanding of this today? 3 sentences, please.
Perhaps there never will be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We are not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him.
Thank you. And William, can we answer the riddle?
Cannot answer the riddle.
Thank you. Kenny, back to you. Of what are we certain?
I lost my place again.
We know that. Bottom of 22.
We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, he may do so for a month or years. He reacts much like other men.
Thank you. And Linda, a 3-part question for you. A, of what are we equally positive? B, does the ingestion of alcohol affect both the body and the mind? And C, what is the result of taking any alcohol into the body of an alcoholic?
We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, whatever, into the system, something happens, both in the bodily and the mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop.
Thank you so much. And Rick, what makes the preceding statement abundantly clear?
The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this.
Thank you. Lisa, you're muted.
And I have a comment. Sorry about that. From this point on in this book, we will be dealing with the problem of the real chronic alcoholic, the problem of the mind, the inability of the alcoholic to manage the decision to not start drinking again based on self-knowledge, self-will, or the alcoholic's willpower. We will be told of the need for a spiritual experience, awakening, to survive alcoholism. The reason the alcoholic must gain access to a higher power.
Thank you, Lisa. And Jim, coming back to you, what sets the terrible cycle in motion?
These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion.
Thank you. And William, where does the real problem of the alcoholic rest?
Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body.
Thank you.
And I have a comment. Is the real problem physical, the allergy, or mental, the insanity?
And Kenny, if you ask an alcoholic why he drinks, can he give you an honest answer? And then you have 2 sentences, please.
If you ask him why he started on the last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in light of the havoc an alcoholic drinking bout creates.
Thank you. And Linda, what analogy do the authors give us?
They sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache.
Thank you. Rick, if you point this out to him, what will his reaction be? If you draw.
If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk.
Thank you. And Jim, does the alcoholic ever tell the truth?
Once in a while, he may tell the truth.
Sometimes. And William, what is the truth?
And the truth, strenuous to say, is unusual that he has no more idea why he took that first drink than you have.
Absolutely. And Kenny, even with plausible excuses, do they know the answer?
Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied, but part of the time.
Thank you. Linda, what is the real truth?
But in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it.
That's so true. Rick, once they have crossed the line, what is their mental state?
Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot.
So true. Jim, what is the obsession of every alcoholic?
There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game.
Correct. And William, do they normally suspect the truth?
Me?
Yes.
Okay. I was just digesting what we just read. But they often suspect they are down for the count.
Thank you. Kenny, do most folks realize this?
How true this is, you'll realize.
Thank you. And Linda, what do family members and friends hope?
In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal, but everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will.
Thank you. And Rick, what is the tragic truth?
The tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive.
So true. And Jim, what has the alcoholic lost?
He has lost control.
Thank you. William, what happens at a certain point in the alcoholic's drinking career?
At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into the stage where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is absolutely no avail.
Thank you. And Kenny, what is the tragic situation?
This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected.
Thank you. Linda, what is it that the alcoholic has lost?
The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink.
So true.
And I have a comment. Do you believe you have the power to control your drinking once you have started? Do you believe you have the power to stop starting? Have you lost the power of choice as to how much you drink? And more importantly, have you lost the power to choose whether or not you will drink? Is your life unmanageable when it comes to drinking?
Yes. And that was Linda. So Rick, what happens to our willpower?
Where are we?
Our so-called, the second line of the squiggly writing.
Okay, our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent.
Perfect. And Jim, how long can we rely on our minds to keep fresh the misery of our last drunk?
We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago.
Thank you.
So true. I have a comment. How long were you able to stay stopped before coming to Alcoholics Anonymous for help? Why would we ask a newcomer to go to 90 meetings in 90 days if they have a real desire to stop drinking? Could it be that alcohol has done so much damage to our mind and bodies that it will take time in order for the damage to heal? We have a far better chance to recover when we practice a spiritual solution.
Thank you, Lisa. And William, as a result of this phenomenon, what are we without?
We are without defense against that first drink. Is this the first drink?
Yes.
And another comment. If we are without defense against taking the first drink on our own, what then must be our destiny? Without the aid of a power greater than ourselves, step 2, we are led to the gates of insanity or death. Step 1.
So true. And Kenny, with no more than a glass of beer, what does not enter our mind?
The almost certain consequence that follows taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us.
Thank you. Linda, is there a slight suspicion, or if there is a slight suspicion, what does the mind do?
Could you tell me, because I just lost my space. I was looking at something.
If these thoughts occur,
Is it the second paragraph?
I'm looking.
You could go to the next person.
Yeah,
Go-
because I'm looking on the wrong page in my book. Okay, Rick, I'm going to skip Linda with no more. No, if there is a slight suspicion, what does the mind do, Rick? Coming to you, Rick.
If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people.
Thank you. And Jim, what analogy do they give us here regarding the loss of power of choice?
There is a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove.
Thank you. William, what may the alcoholic say to himself?
The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, "It won't burn me this time."
Keep going.
So,
Go ahead.
so here's how.
Thank you.
So
There
here's
you
how. What happened.
And Kenny, do alcoholics always give some thought to taking a drink?
Or perhaps he doesn't think at all.
Thank you. Linda, coming back to you with a two-part question. A, do some alcoholics start drinking without realizing what they are doing? And B, when they realize they are drinking, what thought or thoughts do they have? And read the rest of the paragraph.
How often have some of us begun to drink in this nonchalant way, and after the third or the fourth, pounded on the bar and said to ourselves, "For God's sake, how did I ever get started again?" Only to have that thought supplanted by, "Well, I'll start with the sixth drink," or "What's the use anyhow?"
Thank you.
And I have a comment. Have you ever found yourself drinking and couldn't remember how you got started?
Sure did.
Hmm.
And Rick, a two-part question. A, when an alcoholic reaches this stage of alcoholism, where do they find themselves? And B, if not locked up, what will happen to them?
When this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendencies, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid, and unless locked up, may die or go permanently insane.
Thank you.
Yeah. Again, emphasizing the idea of a need for a power greater than ourselves. Step 2.
And Jim, is this fact or fiction?
These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history.
Thank you so much. And William, you get our final question for the night. Nope, we have two more questions. Sorry. William, what has prevented many such demonstrations?
But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations.
Thank you. And Kenny, you get the final question for tonight. What are so many unable to do?
So many want to stop but cannot.
Thank you so much. So please go ahead and remute and put your hands down, or I will in a moment. And if you have experience with this portion of the book that was read, please feel free to share. And please be mindful of your time and that others may have their hands raised and are waiting to share. And a friendly reminder, absence of profanity offends no one. So we're now open for comment, questions, and observations and spiritual experiences based on what we just read.
Hi, my name is Linda. I'm an alcoholic. What we just read, it goes into the description of the alcoholic and the actions, and it talks about losing the power of choice. It's all about losing the power of choice, because you wake up at the bar and you say, "How did I get here?" So you don't even know how you got there. I didn't even know how I got to the point of my drinking. I didn't know. I did not know. I couldn't explain. And I like this because it reminds me, of that alcoholism back then, 30-something years ago. And the question of drinking safely? No, I can't drink safely. No, I can't. I can be honest. I can't drink safely. I'm going to go back to that ugly place. That ugly, pale place where it was just constant drinking, perpetual pain and suffering. And trying to, it's like the hot stove. Just burning myself over and over, and then still thinking, but I'm going to do it different. But things is going to happen differently. That is the insanity of this disease. Yes, this disease is centered in my mind. It's centered in my mind, and some type of way, I don't react the same way other people do. In my mind, it just triggers something. where I just can't stop. I have no idea. I can't really explain it. Maybe a psychiatrist can, maybe a brain surgeon can. But for me, in my mind, I cannot stop. This is not anything to play with. I can't fool myself. There was a guy who told me he had 7 years of sobriety, but he kept being around those people that drank. So they were like, well, you don't drink. We know you're not going to drink our liquor, so we'll send you to the store. And he kept going to the store. And that one time he went to the store, he did drink their liquor, And that's the importance of when they say stay away from people, places, and things, because alcohol will trigger us. Smelling it, being around it long enough, it's going to trigger us and it's going to take us back. For me, I'm sharing for me. I don't know about anybody else. I don't know how strong some people think they are, this or that. But for me, I do really stay away from people, places, and things. I don't need to go around places where they're drinking. Other people can drink, that's their business. If they can't, that's their business too. There's help. It's the same place I'm going. But for me, and the protection of my sobriety, the protection against drinking, I can't be around those people, places, and things. It will trigger me. And I like what it says. We don't even have defense against the first one. I had a sponsor, and I told her, and she was more of an addict, but she did alcohol too, because I asked, I said, now, just be honest with me. Did you drink? Because if you didn't, then you need to be in the other fellowship. Oh, well, I go to the other fellowship, but I come here too because I would get drunk and go into a blackout. And I said, okay, fine. And she was telling me about one lady, and the lady was doing a substance, and it was very strong. And I told her, I said, you just answer me. Do you think those people, you know that it can kill you. You know everything that we're telling you, what you're reading in the book, what it's going to do to you. Do you think that person is your friend if they're offering you that? I said, you call them your friends? I said, so tell me something. When you get around them and they start cracking the bottle and pulling out the dry goods, I said, you really think you're just going to sit there and watch? You think you're not going to jump in? You think somebody's not going to say, here, have a drink, or put it up under your nose or whatever? I said, you really think that? You think that you're going to sit there and you're not going to use, you're not going to drink? And she got a real attitude. Well, I know because I got a will that I don't want to drink. It's strong enough to keep me from drinking and using. And I said, seriously? I said, seriously? She was only 21 years old. She figured she know everything. So she got an attitude with me because I told her, I said, you can't be around them people. That's the people, places, and things. Those people are drinking and using. And what are you trying to do? You're trying to stop. So how does that make sense? Why would you be around people that are doing that? Even if they are your friends. I said, you can get new friends. I said, it's not that important. They're not your friends. Anybody hands me poison and it's going to kill me, it's going to cause me to ruin my life and act crazy, they're not my friend. They're not my friend at all. And it took me a while to understand that too when I was first coming around. But I did take the suggestions and I did listen. I didn't think I know everything because I was at the bottom. So I wasn't that, oh, come in AA, we need to do this, we need to change this. How some newcomers come in. And yes, that's good that you want to be a part of and this and that. But, sit down, calm down, listen. Listen to other people's experience, strength, and hope. Don't think that a person doesn't know anything and they forgot because maybe they got umpteen years. No, they still remember. They remember it very well. I do not forget. So I just wanted to share about that because I was her third sponsor. So that lets you know right there, when you don't take suggestions, it's a consequences, and we have to protect our sobriety because of this disease we have. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Linda. Who's next? Rick, hi, come on in.
Hello everyone, Rick Alcoholic. Therefore the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than his body. That was for me, that's a true statement for me from day one when I first started to drink. I never drank moderately. I always drank heavily and thought I was somebody who could handle a lot of liquor and beer and stay out all night and carouse and wake up the next day. And in my early days for even though I was drinking every day, I'd wake up in the morning and my drinking my morning drinking was a cold pitcher of water filled with ice, and I think of that. And then one day that stopped. It became another drink. When I was a young guy living at home, my father used to see me drink this water in the morning, and he says, "There you go, putting out the fire again. Always putting out that fire." And and as the years went by, and I'm drinking, and no, I'm not drinking normally, making all kinds of excuses, not to anyone, but for myself, to keep on drinking. I would say to myself, "You just one that can drink like that," and I'm lying to myself, saying that it's not affecting me. That it's not in these pages, but that denizen in King Alcohol realm, that's me, the inhabitant. When I wasn't drinking, when I could not drink, when I was in my career in 24-hour shifts, spending time with the family, I didn't drink, but man, was it on my mind when I would start up again, knowing I'll be drinking the next day, or later on that day, once the day was over for the family. That's a part of this disease I do not miss. How it owned me, even though I didn't have it in me. I was talking with my sponsor, 36 years, and just got back from Amsterdam with his wife, and went to listen to some jazz music and all that, and one of their nights out, and there were cocktails being served, and after 36 years, he still had to make that decision to leave and go back to the hotel room. And she came up later. She can order a glass of wine and make it last all night, and that he can deal with. But it's the jazz music and the alcohol mixed in there. This is his old setting. And he had to remove himself after 36 years. It made me smile. It made me smile because it just shows how it shows me this disease is something that's just part of me, and it's what I would have to do. I was in that situation some years ago, and I thought I was all that because I did good. I didn't leave, and I didn't drink. But I'll tell you right now, I am so grateful I have not been in that kind of setting. Because for me, the alcohol always settling in my mind, and then later on the sedatives that came along, because I didn't want to go to work with a drink on my breath. These pages right here, people say page 21 alcoholic. The pages we read tonight is me, and but I am so forever grateful how it's just not on my mind anymore when I'm not drinking. It owned me, So, thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Thanks for being here.
My name is William Alcoholic, and I paid a lot of pain to learn this lesson, the information that we read today, man. I was clueless until I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. What we read tonight, and when we read it, I could see myself in all of it, and definitely, I thought I had willpower, and I could stop drinking a months at a time to pay my rent up or catch up some bills and stuff like that, and I pick up that first drink, I'll be back off to the race. So I was clueless about what's going on. And I remember going into the bar and somebody asked I wasn't going to drink, and somebody said, buy him a drink on me. What he drinking? And they would tell him, I said, cranberry juice. They said, give him a drink on me, and the rest of it was on me. And once I got started, there was no stopping. There was no stopping and stuff, And I lived, I tell you a story, right? I lived in the same place right here over 50 years. So it was two young ladies that lived next door to me, beautiful young ladies, and they had a third young lady. They used to hang out over there and drink and do whatever they did and stuff, And I'd say I wasn't going to drink, and what happened? I would come to my car, and the days I got paid, they'd knock on my door and come in, and give me a drink, and I get started, and the party be on and stuff. So when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I met one of those young ladies. There was two sisters and a friend. I met the friend, and she told me, say, William, we knew the day that you got paid, because we see you walk on them grocery bags in your hand. We know you have money, and they would come and give me a drink, and the party just started, But you know what? The honor of it is, though, and God bless them, those two young ladies, they never got so, like they say, die or be locked up in insane asylum. They died alcoholic because they kept in touch with her, and she would tell me what happened to them. But I'm so grateful that I came here and began to see what I was about. And I like this part around here when this sort of thinking, because I would hit the bars out, by the way, get fully drunk anyway. They said when this sort of thinking is fully established in an individual with alcoholic tendency, he has probably passed himself beyond human aid. And unless locked up, same thing on time, may die or go permanently insane. These are stark, ugly facts have been confirmed by legion of alcoholics and throughout the history. And that's what I'm so grateful for, that God seen fit to bring me here. And I don't find myself special to God. I think we're all of God's children, but the choices that He give us choice, and somewhere along the line, through y'all and this information, I began to make healthier choices, and so for that, I'm grateful, to know that I'm alcoholic, and it's a place where I could come and treat myself, I don't have to drink, you know what I mean? I haven't seen a reason to drink anymore since I've been here, and I still have to, like one thing I learned when I stopped drinking, the liquor store didn't close up. They still out there, the bars are still out there, and people are still doing the same thing, you know what I mean? But my job now is to be here if they come through the doors of alcohol. If I see them, my people. Matter of fact, a lady called me today, a friend of my wife, and say that she wanted me to talk to her nephew down in Florida who suffered from this disease, So those things I can do, and ready to make myself available to do those things, And not only if I be helping myself, because I get another, because sometimes I think I've been away for a long time. It's definitely a place for a newcomer and old timer to be together. To get a fresh look at what I call this is still doing out there. So I'm grateful that because I could have been locked up or been insane. I could have suffered out there dying. Thank God for the grace that it talked about of God that brought me here. So thank you.
Thank you, William. Thanks for being here. Hi, Jamie.
Good evening, family. My name is Jamie, very grateful, recovered alcoholic. Glad all of you are here tonight and good to be with you. So, Bill is repeating some things in there as a solution that we've already been told in the doctor's opinion. One of those things that he's telling us here, at the bottom of 22, we are equally positive that much like other men, we are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, whatever, into his system, something happens both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. He's talking about the phenomenon of craving there. The allergy kicks in, the phenomenon of craving kicks in. You know, my physical body does not process alcohol the way my grandmother's body processed alcohol. There's something in my body, maybe it's my pancreatic liver that doesn't process it right or something like that, but what happens is in me, it has created a ketoacidosis, which
I think he froze. We'll give him a minute. Oh, and he's gone. He'll be back. So who wants to come in? Well, I'll go ahead and jump in. I'm Trish and I'm an alcoholic. And there's a handful of things in here that really jumped out at me this time. And the first was towards the beginning of the reading. Hi, Jamie. Welcome back to you. Where it says, while the alcoholic keeps away from a drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men. And that statement there is what convinced me I was not an alcoholic. Because, I wasn't a daily drinker. I was a binge drinker. But each time I put it down, I got a little bit of time. I started reacting towards life like other people. So I was convinced that I wasn't an alcoholic. But that totally negated the fact that that alcoholic problem was in my mind and not necessarily in my body. Because when I wasn't drinking, even though I put it down for a little while, and I wasn't picking that drink up each day, I was thinking about it. And I was thinking, when is that next one going to come? When is that... when is that next drink going to come? How am I going to get it? Where am I going to get it? And then, like it says, the truth is, strange to say, I had no more idea why I took that first drink than anybody else did. Other than it was there, and I could. And then that brings me to the squiggly writing on page 24. The fact is, most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. I didn't have a choice of whether or not I drank. Even though during the times that I didn't, it was just a matter of time where I knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that I was powerless over that alcohol. Well, I didn't realize I was powerless, but I knew that next first drink was going to come. And there was nothing that I was going to be able to do about it. But a lot of the information in this chapter is what helped me recognize that, yes, I was an alcoholic. Even though I may not have been the daily drinker. I couldn't not put it down and keep it down. I couldn't drink like you. I couldn't keep my hand off the stove, as Bill was talking about, because I always had to go back to that drink, no matter what was going on in life. And it didn't matter if life was going great. I was still going to find the way to drink. Because, my self-knowledge, my self-will wasn't going to cause me to stop drinking. And I did not at that point have that higher power that it talks about at the end of our drinking, step 2, the need for the power. I had no power to not drink. So I always knew that there was always going to be that next first drink, regardless of how much I didn't want to have it. And I knew there was nothing that I could do about it. Jamie, did you want to pop back in?
We'll see if it works. Cellular hell. At any rate, bottom line is my body doesn't process alcohol like a normal person's does. Once that phenomenon of craving kicks in, that allergy, I can't stop. I will... 6? Really? That's all? I'm drinking till I can't stop. You know, and the bit where it talks about no idea how he got there, that's a description of a blackout drinker. I was always aware of the stupid stuff I was doing. Always. God bless me with a memory, and rarely, I can only think of maybe 2 or 3 times in my life, in the entirety of my drinking career, that I had to ask, what did I do? Because I generally always knew. You know, it also does a very good job of describing the mental obsession here as well. So here again, we're being told something that we have already been told through the doctor's opinion, but now we're being told through the alcoholic's experience. And I don't believe that there is a psychologist on this planet that could tell me what alcoholism is unless they are alcoholic themselves. Because only one alcoholic knows how to talk to another alcoholic. Dr. Carl Jung couldn't even give that part to Roland. He gave him the spiritual malady part, but he didn't give him the allergy. He didn't give him the mental obsession. That came from Silky. And Silky didn't have the spiritual part until it went through the chain of Jung, Roland, Bill, Abby, and so on. So, you know, I oftentimes think we're so busy trying to figure out what all this is. But why? They've already figured it out for me. You know, they have continuing education for doctors today, and they get to learn things like how the neurons fire in the brain. I could care less how the neurons fire in my brain. I need to know why I can't put the drink down or keep from picking up the next one. I am the real alcoholic that this book was written for. Some of you might not be. I hope you are. I hope there are things in this book that you can relate to, but this book was written for the chronic, hopeless alcoholic. And I didn't know that until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, I'm here to tell my story, not somebody else's. You know, it's true for me. The fact for most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. All of that applies to me in my chronic, hopeless alcoholism. You know, there are acute alcoholics, and then there are chronic, hopeless alcoholics. An acute alcoholic might be someone who is a heavy hard drinker who does a little too much drinking at Super Bowl for 3 years in a row, and 3 years in a row he gets a DUI on the way home, but he doesn't touch another drink until the next Super Bowl. That doesn't necessarily make him an alcoholic. It just means he's really capable of making bad decisions. And he comes to Alcoholics Anonymous and he learns about this allergy. And he says, oh, that's my problem. I'm allergic to alcohol. So next Super Bowl, he doesn't do any drinking. He doesn't need us. And then we have the mental obsession part, who is the guy who works in the factory making widgets all day long, and once a week he goes down to Curly Moe's saloon and he has 2 glasses of scotch or 2 beers before he goes home. And it's Thursday and he's been thinking about it. It's Thursday, it's my night to go. And that's mental obsession. And he goes and he has his 2 drinks and he goes home and he doesn't pick up another one. Both of those people are acute alcoholics. But me, I've got the allergy and the mental obsession. And even when I'm not drinking, I'm thinking about it. Or when I am drinking, I'm thinking about how many do I have? Do I have enough to get me through to tomorrow morning? Can I get away with not going to work? Will I have enough money to support how many days can I lay out? I'm thinking about all that kind of stuff. Next week, we are going to go into what the solution is. Again, what they have done with this part of the book, this is still the discovery process for each one of us as an individual. You know, I work with a lot of people, and there is not one of them I get to qualify as an alcoholic. Maybe I need to recognize whether or not they're an alcoholic so I know if I'm working with one, but I don't get to look at them and say, you're an alcoholic. Show me, please show me the page in the book where it says I get to do that. Because I ain't found that page. But I need to show them that I'm an alcoholic and how I qualified. And that's what these pages do, is they help me qualify myself as an alcoholic. Some of the questions that I'd ask here in tonight are a lead-in to the 2 questions on page 44. If when I'm drinking, I cannot stop when I want to, or if when I'm drinking I have no control over the amount I take, I am probably an alcoholic. I'm definitely an alcoholic. Bill never tells us anything in the book that he hasn't already told us, except for the very first time we are told. And then he has many, many ways of presenting the same idea with a little bit different language. Why? Because we are some stubborn mules. We don't want to see the truth about ourselves. And we try and still, even after decades of sobriety, oftentimes make ourselves terminally unique and set ourselves apart from everybody else. I'm here for the common bond, folks. And I'm here for the primary purpose, to carry the message to the next sick and suffering alcoholic. And if I'm not here for those reasons, I'm probably here for all the wrong reasons. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, Art. Come on in.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Art. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic. What we're reading about in this chapter right here is that something that I didn't know about, because I remember before coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, I tried to stop and I was successful for about 3 or 4 weeks. But I didn't know why I picked it up again. I wasn't convinced that I was an alcoholic at that point in my life. But as I study this program, and as I began to learn about what alcoholism really is, then I began to understand why I picked it up again. Because, and the reason is because I didn't change anything in my life. I continued to hang out with the same people and do the same things and go to the same places, and one day I just decided it's time for me to have another beer. I don't know why. And I never stopped again until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. And in this process, and in this chapter here particularly, I learned that I had a condition known as alcoholism, and that the only escape from the consequences of alcoholism was for me to find a power greater than myself. And I remember reading through this chapter for the first time and I was impressed with the idea that lost my train of thought. I'm not sure what's going on here. When it talks about being unable to bring to mind with sufficient force the problems of just a few days or weeks ago. And so we do it all over again. And then there's another spot in there that I was impressed with in the first time through, that how many times did I walk into the bar after work and with every intention of having a couple of beers, play a game of pool, and go home. And then suddenly realize it's 9 o'clock in the evening and I'm still there, still drinking. And I chastise myself for a couple of minutes, and then the thinking goes something like this: well, I'm already I'm already in trouble for being late, so you might as well be 6 hours as 3. So have another beer. And I didn't understand why that happened. And the idea of pounding on the bar and saying, my God, how did I get here again? And I didn't understand any of that. I just knew that it was happening. But I didn't know why, and I didn't understand it, and I didn't believe I was an alcoholic, but I knew there was something different. And so when I'm reading this chapter for the first time, I become aware that I'm no different from the people that wrote that book. I've had the same experiences. I've done the same things. I have the same twisted thinking. And well, maybe I am an alcoholic. You see, these first chapters in this book are intended to bring me to that conclusion. And once I've reached that conclusion, now I can begin to look at the steps and make some sense out of them. And they start to have some meaning. And that maybe if I follow these instructions and do the things that are suggested, maybe I can recover too. And that's been my experience. The further I got into it, the more convinced I became that I really am an alcoholic and I'm no different from the people that wrote that book. And I'm no different from you. And so I have to stop looking for ways to be different and look for how I'm the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Larry, come on in.
Hey, I'm Larry and I'm an alcoholic. You know, I read this and, you know, when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't think I ever doubted the fact that I was an alcoholic. I wanted to believe that although I was an alcoholic, I could not be an alcoholic, and that maybe I could learn how to not be an alcoholic. I did want Alcoholics Anonymous to teach me that, but I think I was pretty convinced that I was not like normal people. But when that happened, I don't know. I do know, you know, I did after reading, you know, this and after reading a few months ago, we were reading the chapter to the wives. I kind of looked at some of the it was their description of you know, an alcoholic and stuff, and I kind of looked at what you know, their description and then what is said here, and I kind of got a description of where I was as an alcoholic and how I, you know, because for a long time I was a real heavy drinker, and I probably had a choice to stop, but I was, you know, it was common. Everybody that I worked with, we would have drinks after work, and we would drink until dark, until it was time for bed, and you know, long past almost midnight, and then we'd go to bed, and it would be an everyday occurrence. It's, you know, that was a lifestyle that we had, you know, on the road working construction and stuff, and this went on and on and on, and you know, in doing so, you know, but I think I still at that point had a choice. I had a choice of whether or not to stop or not stop, but I didn't want to stop, and but you know, as my drinking went on, you know, I think I got to a place that consequences began to happen, you know, and things began to progress in my life, and I could see I was different. I could see I was drinking more than the rest of the men that I was around, and I went back to the house and would finish a half a fifth, you know, after I finished with them, and you know, and that wasn't normal. That wasn't what they would do, but that's what I would do, and it was at that point I realized I was at the point that, you know, I wanted to go back. I wanted to kind of stop, but it was at the point that I wanted to want to stop. I didn't really want to stop, but I wanted to want to stop. In the morning, you know, I got to the place I had the consequences of being sick. I'd have to have a drink to get the morning started and stuff. You know, my body wanted to stop drinking in the morning, but by the end of the day, my mind didn't want to stop. And I think I'd crossed the line. at that point. And when I went to the third stage, I don't know, but I know I did, where I no longer, I was drinking so heavily and doing so much other things. But, the book says there's hope. There was hope for me at that point, and I am so glad for Alcoholics Anonymous for the hope that this program offers, because of us that go from one drink to another drink to another, from a heavy drinker to one type of alcoholic to another type of alcoholic. There's hope. Wherever this program finds us, there's hope for us, because this program works. That's all I got.
Thanks, Larry. And Lisa, can you come in and read our closing, please?
Sure. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answers will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then.
Thank you, Lisa.
Close with a moment of silence.
And we will close out in our usual pickle fashion, where we hold our hands up to the screen, since we can't stand around the table and hold hands with each other. And we'll take a moment of silence for those still suffering inside and outside of these rooms. And we'll follow that with the Lord's Prayer. So here's your moment. Thank you. And who brings us from shame to grace if we let him? Our Father,
Our Father,
who art
who art in
in heaven,
heaven, thy will be done.
Be thy
Be
name,
thy
Thy
name,
kingdom come.
thy kingdom
Thy will
come,
Thy
be
will be
done.
done
thy will be
On
on
done
earth
earth
as
as
it
it
is
is
on
in
in
earth
heaven.
heaven.
as it is in heaven.
give
Give
us
us
Give
this
this
us
day
this
our
Give
day our
daily
us this
daily
bread,
day,
bread, and forgive
forgive
us our
us our
trespasses,
trespasses,
as
as
we
we
forgive
forgive
those
those
who
who
trespass
trespass against
against
us.
us.
trespass
And
against
lead
us.
And
us
lead
not
us
into
not
not
into
Lead
into
us not into
temptation,
temptation,
but
temptation,
deliver
but
us
deliver
from
us
but
from
evil.
deliver us
evil.
For
from
For
evil.
thine
thine is
is
the
the
kingdom,
kingdom,
the
and
For
the
thy
power,
is the
power, and
kingdom,
the
and the
the
glory,
glory,
power, and the
forever and
glory,
ever.
forever and ever.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. What a great meeting.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
thank you,
What
everybody.
everyone.
a great meeting. Thank
Thanks so much.
everybody for
great
your
meeting.
service. Hey,
Always a
hey
good meeting.
Lisa, you's a
Good night.
rising